I have a confession to make, and I wonder how many of you out there could make the same exact confession. Before I was published, I would go to the bookstore and I would go to the end shelf in the fiction section and I would look for where exactly my book was going to sit on that shelf. I so desperately wanted to be a published author and have that book out that I would go to the bookstore and daydream about what it would look like, right? It feels so good to have your books published, and I really want that to happen for you. When I've worked with thousands of authors now through Writerly, through Gutsy, through Avasta, through consulting, all of these things, I've seen so many authors publish to the point where now I get 1 or 2 emails a week, at least, of someone telling me about how they've just published their book, and it is so exciting, and I really want that to happen for you as well. Now, you might be wondering, if you're thinking about self-publishing, are self-published books really as good as traditionally published books? So I have a little story for you. A few years back, when I was hosting PubCamp, we had Amazon speaking, and they put up a slide showing how about one out of the top 100 Amazon bestsellers, a quarter of them were self-published. This was big news to me. So I took a picture of the slide and I tweeted it out, and it was big news to everybody. The Guardian picked up the slide, all these big newspapers ran it, and the next day I got a call from Amazon, and I was nervous, thinking, oh, maybe I shouldn't have shared that. And they said, no, it's great, we want the word out there, but it's wrong. That slide was outdated. Actually, out of the top 100 books on Amazon, 50% were self-published. Mind blown, right? The truth is, these days, it's really hard to tell the difference between a well self-published book and a traditionally published book, right? So let's give you a few more stories. There is Jack and Jacinda Wilder, who they started being a couple that were so poor, they were going to lose their house, they didn't know how to pay their bills, and they got the bright idea to start self-publishing romance books. They worked together, they published an insane amount in a year, and by the end of the year, they had made $1 million. Again, mind blown, right? And then let's talk about Hugh Howey. Hugh Howey writes science fiction books. He wrote the Wool series. They were so popular on his own that then when a publisher came around and offered him a traditional publishing deal, he was able to negotiate what has never been done before. He was able to get a deal where they only got the rights to his print books, and he retained the rights for the ebooks, which is where you make the majority of the revenue. Amazing. But maybe you're not a genre writer. Maybe you don't write romance or science fiction. Then I want to tell you about Ingrid Ricks, an author from my hometown of Seattle. She wrote Hippie Boy, which was a literary memoir. This is not going to have the same huge scale that a popular romance book would. However, she was able to self-publish and have enough success and get enough attention on her book that then, I believe it was Penguin, came along and offered her a deal in order to then change that from a self-published book to a traditionally published book and give it an even bigger audience and an even bigger reach. No, she wasn't one that made millions and millions of dollars, but she did very well, and her self-published book advanced her publishing career. And if you write nonfiction, so many of our favorite nonfiction books were self-published, and you might not even know. Like Tim Ferriss's 4-Hour Chef, I don't even know how many bestseller lists that's on. That was a self-published book. And he started with traditional publishing, and he went, forget it, and switched on over to self-publishing. Now, the self-published authors are earning more in royalties from Amazon than all of the big 5 publisher authors combined. And it makes a lot of sense, because when you traditionally publish, you are lucky if you make, $1 a book. with your self-publishing, the platforms out there are giving you 30 to 70% of the royalties. It's a really big difference. And Author Earnings put out this report in 2017 that is so good. I just have to share with you. I read to you what they concluded their Author Earnings report for the year 2017. They scanned all the big industries, got all the numbers, and this is one of their comments at the very bottom of their report. We live in exciting times. Today, it is possible to be a full-time professional author, quietly earning $50,000 plus a year, even 6 figures a year, without ever sending a query letter to anyone. On Amazon alone, the data shows over 1,000 indie authors earning full-time living right now with their self-published titles. The only gatekeepers that matter now are readers. Okay, now if you self-publish your book, I am not promising that you are going to be rich. That is not in the cards for most authors. In fact, half of self-published authors only make about $500 per book. However, the same industry surveys that came up with that $500 number also found out that only 5% of self-published authors consider themselves unsuccessful. Now let's look at why. Yes, it's really great to make money from your books. Hallelujah, I think that's glorious. But there's more. Maybe you are publishing a book in order to build your audience or your authority. Maybe you're publishing not just to make money on the book, but in order to sell your services or get that teaching job. And maybe, just maybe, you're publishing your book because you have something that you want to share. You are trying to communicate something and have that meaningful connection with people, doing that wonderful thing of telling your story and inspiring more empathy in the world that just makes the world a better place. So let's maximize your chances of having a positive publishing experience. There's as many paths to publication as there are authors. There's no wrong way, really. There's no wrong way to publish your book. However, there are more effective and professional ways to self-publish your book. We've all seen those books, the self-published books that are very cringeworthy. They have the covers that are stitched together in Word or PowerPoint, and the editing isn't so good. Those are sometimes what you might think of when you think of self-published books. Those are not going to be your book. Your book is going to be professional and have the opportunity for the greatest amount of impact, success, getting your message out there, making money, all those wonderful things. However, there's a couple steps that you need to follow. And in the next 2 videos, I'm going to go over exactly what they are and a little more detail. The first step, of course, is you better have a good book. If you don't have a good book, then I can't help you. You can self-publish professionally well, you might actually sell it if you have good marketing, but it'll be really hard to sell the next one. So the first step is you gotta have a good book. And then the next step is that you need to have a plan and a budget. Now, if you don't know how to do this, that's okay. I'm going to help you. So definitely open your next emails and stay tuned so that you can hear a little bit more about being one of those success stories and one of those happy authors. The New York Times ran a survey and reported that 80% of Americans want to write a book or plan to write a book. But we all know that planning to write a book and actually publishing a book are completely different things. I really want you to go from writer to author. We are going to get your books published. If you can, please take a moment to leave a comment under the video. Please tell me what it is that you want to learn about self-publishing. Share a success story, a tragedy self-publishing story. Ask me a question. Please leave a comment. I really want to hear from you. And check for the next 2 videos coming out this week.